Let's take a look at Lab 4 working with EBS. We'll turn in our screenshots and notes into the Mount SAC Canvas shell, but the lab instructions and the virtual lab are in the AWS Academy. That's also called Lab 4 working with EBS. So I'll open that up. I started the lab already, and you can see the green light over here with AWS. We're ready to get started. Elastic Block Store gives you persistent storage. It gives you storage like attaching an external hard drive to your virtual machine, your EC2 instance. So in this lab, we're going to create our EBS volume. That's like our external hard drive. Attach it and mount it to our EC2 instance. We'll make a snapshot. We'll make a new volume for the snapshot, and we'll mount this on a new volume. And this lab's really fun because we get to use the command line to do a lot of that work. So make sure you take some notes of these features, or you can go over to the official documentation and look that up when you need to. I find there's a lot of good information in the lab notes, and we might want to just save them for later. So I've already started the lab here, and if for some reason it takes you a while to get through, you can always click the Start Lab again, and it will add time to the lab for you. So you can just keep this going for a couple hours if that's what it takes for you. All right, and it's nice. You can submit it here in the AWS Academy, but take a screenshot of each task and upload that to the Mount SAC Canvas shell. That's where our grades are being kept. So let's take a look at task 1, creating a new volume. We'll go to the management console and we'll select EC2. So let's get over to the management console. We'll select EC2. In the left navigation pane, choose Instances. Instances. Now let's note the availability zone. Make sure that we're in US East 1. So let's see, United States, US East 1. Okay. And let's take a look over here. Availability zone, US East 1A. Okay, that looks good. So the lab instance here, this one, is already running. That's what we're looking for. So on the left navigation pane, choose volumes. So sometimes you're just going to have to scroll up and down and look around until you find what you want. Amazon keeps adding features and moving menu items around, so sometimes the live console is slightly different than the lab instructions. So here I'm on volumes, and let's see. We're going to, we follow the directions, create a volume. So I'll just click create volume over there. General purpose SSD, okay. Now this one says GP2, so I'm going to change this to GP2. You can experiment and try with GP3 and see if the lab instructions work or not, but just to go through on the first time, we'll try and make sure the settings match from the lab to the live production. All right, size in gigabytes, 1. Oh, well, it looks like we're going to have to make a 1 gigabyte. You might want to go through and try 10, 20 gigabytes, 50. We don't know what the restrictions are going to be unless we go look them up. Let's see, availability zone, make it the same as your instance. 1A, that looks good. So we need to come down. We're going to add a tag down here. We'll add our tag. Oh, looks like the key is going to be name, and the value will be my volume. Oh, that's exciting. And we'll create the volume. These are very creative names, you know. All right, so task 1 is done. Let's see. This should show up here as soon as it's ready. There's my volume. So we'll grab our first screenshot of the browser. Notice that I've got the URL in there. It shows my volume. There won't be any questions about getting all the tasks done for this. All right, task 2. Attach the volume to an instance. So we'll select my volume. That's selected, and we have some information down here on the bottom. And in the Actions menu, choose Attach Volume. So Actions, Attach Volume. In the Instance field, choose the Instance field, then select the lab instance. So we have to come over here, and I think once you understand the concepts from the lectures and the material on what you're doing, sometimes it's just what buttons to click and what does this menu item mean here. Sometimes that can be the hang up. So we'll choose our instance field, and looks like we only have our 2 instances available, so I'll choose the lab instance like the instructions say. And it says note the device name is set to dev/SDF. I don't see that set yet, so let's go ahead and click. And I guess we could just choose that, dev/SDF. It says recommended device names for Linux. Okay. So we could choose any one of those. We'll go ahead and go with what the lab says. And we have some great classes on Linux if you want to learn more about those device names. So newer Linux kernels, that's fine. Let's attach the volume. And then the volume should say in use. So here's the volume. We can scroll across here. Now you probably have a much bigger monitor, so you might not need to scroll as much, but I'm going to go hunting for everything while I show you on the video the instructions and the console side by side. Alright, so we found it. It's now in use. That seems like a good place to take our next screenshot. That task is complete. Now we're going to connect to the EC2 instance. That sounds good to me. I like connecting to instances. Aren't we already in EC2? Here we are. And we'll choose instances. And we'll select the lab instance. And then we need to choose connect. And this is a nice feature right here. Connect. All right, we're just going to choose connect. We don't have to make any other settings. We'll just choose connect. It looks like when the lab was set up, they prearranged some access, the VPC, some other firewall rules, and you could go through and figure out what all those are, but they set it up ahead of time so that everything works for you. And now you'll see that we're on Amazon Linux 2023. You might have noticed in a former video when I connected in, you couldn't really see this bird ASCII art because I had everything zoomed in or small or something, but that looks fine to me. So that is task 3. When you get to this connected tab, go ahead. Now if you wanted to, you could download the private key from the details, SSH in on your own computer, and complete the rest of the tasks on your system rather than in the browser. That's pretty cool. So let's run the following command, df.h. So that's a human readable list of our disks. So here's all of our disks, and this is the output we should see. Okay. It should show the original 8 gigabyte disk. So let's see. 6.4 available, 1.6. So there's 8 gigs XVDA1. That's correct. And it's mounted at /. So we look across here, mounted at /. That's the root. Okay, that's good. The 1 gig other volume isn't here. So we're going to have to manually connect this. Now again, if this is not something that you do every day, write all these notes down for yourself. It's not something you're going to remember if you don't do it regularly. Make sure you take some screenshots of the instructions or copy and paste them to your notes. This is a regular task that you'll do when you're working with AWS. So let's go ahead and follow these instructions. You can just copy and paste from here. So first we'll create our ext3 file system on the new volume. Okay, creating file system, allocating group tables, that looks good. Next, we're going to create a directory. That's a folder. So let's just take a look. Did it work? If we look in the mount MNT folder, there's data store. All right. Now to configure the Linux instance to mount the volume, you will need to add a line in the etc fs tab. That's the file system tab, not the fun stab, file system tab. So let's go ahead and copy this. It's okay if you don't know all the commands yet. When you take your Linux class, you'll learn what these are. Briefly, you're going to take some text output, this line, you're going to echo it into this file. That's what this means, sudo t-a. We're going to append to this file this line of text. Okay, it doesn't look like there was any error. So let's view the configuration file. Cat means concatenate. Let's see, can I just move this up to the top? There we go. So here's our etc fs tab file, and there's our line. Looks good. Now let's take a look. What do we have? Can I zoom this in for you a little bit? So there's our XDA1. Well, we don't see it yet, do we? Do you see XDF here? Maybe we skipped something. Okay. We did. We skipped mounting the device right here. Let's try it again. Were you yelling at your screen? That happens a lot. Here we go. So we have our 975 meg. That's approximately a gig at data store. And now that looks correct. So let's create a file and add some text to it. This is a very efficient way to add the text. Some text has been written. Let's change that. Let's go ahead. It's not going to let me do this, huh? We can do sudo shell -c echo Sammy student CISN 71 to mount data store file.txt. That'll be better. And now I can cat that file. That's concatenate data store file.txt. If you can do that, that's much better, because then we'll see your name on that. And let's go ahead and take a screenshot. That'll be more fun. More fun than saying some text has been written. All right, so there's task 4 screenshot. Looks like we're almost done here. Let's create a snapshot. That way we can always keep the name in class. In this task, you'll create a snapshot of your EBS volume. We can create any number of point-in-time consistent snapshots. That looks good. So let's go to the EC2 console, choose volumes, and choose my volume. So we're back over here. Let me go back to 100% zoom. We'll go volumes. In the EC2 console, choose volumes, my volumes. So we got to look again. Where's volumes? Scroll, scroll, scroll. It's down here under Elastic Block Store again. Same place it was last time. And then we'll select my volume. That one's selected right there. Under Actions, we'll create a snapshot. Actions, create snapshot. And then we can give it a key and a value. Oh, we have to add a tag. We'll say name. When you're in production, you might want to give more useful names like snapshot 9/22/25 pre-upgrade, something like that. All right, so I've got that. Let's go ahead and create a snapshot. Okay, now that's good. So we made a snapshot. The snapshot was successful. Now in our instance connect session, which we left open over here, we're going to delete that file. And I'll go ahead and just copy and paste. But first we'll make sure, oops, those commands don't work. I'll show you the file is there, and then I'll go ahead and delete that, and we'll confirm that the file is gone. So here it is, and now our file is no more. It's gone. And we say, oh no, we have to get our file back. So let's grab a quick screenshot of this file being missing and head on to task 6. Let's get our file back. No, we deleted it by accident. So let's go back to the ECT volume and we'll go to snapshots. Notice that key value, there's your name, my snapshot. So we'll select that. And the actions, we're going to create a volume from the snapshot. Actions, create a volume from the snapshot. It's going to add tag. We'll call it name restored volume. Do they want us to change anything else? Nope. So we'll go down to tags. We'll add for name. We'll give it restored volume. Yeah, just let me know when I'm making a typo like that. Come on. So there's we have our tag, name, and restored volume. Did it? No. I clicked remove. That's not add tag. All right, let's create that volume. So we have more than one snapshot now. Let's see. No, we have the same snapshots. We have more than one volume that we created. We have our my volume where we deleted the file, and then we have the restored volume here. Let's take a look. Restored volume. Actions, attach the volume. So actions, attach volume. That's our restored volume. And we're going to select the lab machine. That's the virtual machine that we're working on. And for the device name, we're gonna move up the alphabet from F to G. So we were on SDF. Now we'll go to SDG and attach the volume. Now if we check, our restored volume should be in use. Good. Now we're going to go back to the command line and we're going to mount that volume. So here we go. First we have to make the directory that we're going to, when you plug a USB drive into Windows or Mac OS, it automatically does all this in the background so that you can just open your file and start using it. On Linux, we have to create the folder that the drive is going to connect to and mount the drive to that folder. So we'll create data store 2, it looks like, and then we're going to mount the drive, which we called SDG, and we're going to mount it on mount data store 2. So now if we go and take a look what files are in mount data store 2, you'll see our file.txt. We can go one step further. We can concatenate file.txt. And there it is, Sammy Student CISN 71. Obviously you would use your own name and not Sammy Student. Okay, let's get a screenshot. That lab is done. So it's good to hit submit here on this lab, but remember, turn your screenshots into Mount San Antonio College. So we did some good work in this lab, creating volumes, attaching volumes, file system, adding the volume, snapshots, making a new volume, attaching the new volume. Remember to write down the commands. They're not all intuitive, especially if you haven't been doing this in a while. All right, see you next time.